Chapter 1. A Less Than Stellar Birthday Report Card. Nick Rostov stared down at his end-of-year report card. 1 F, 2 C's, 1 B-, and an A. In health. He tried to imagine how he would explain to his dad that his lone A was for the class that taught where babies came from, that he knew what a fallopian tube was, but square roots eluded him. If he thought his report card was bad, lunch was a disaster. When he walked into the cafeteria, an overwhelming stench overpowered him, way worse than tuna surprise Tuesdays and mystery meat Mondays. The usual lady in the hairnet had been replaced by a creepy guy with long, wiry hair and strange eyes, and whatever the guy was serving didn't look good, and smelled worse. The smell was so gross that Nick didn't eat and instead fished from his backpack a pulverized snack-sized bag of potato chips, which had been crushed into smithereens by his math book. This meant he actually ate potato chip dust, and his stomach growled all afternoon. When the final bell rang, he grabbed his skateboard from his locker and waved goodbye to a couple of kids in the hall. Once he was off school property, Nick rode his board down the hot Nevada sidewalk in the general direction of the hotel, where he lived in a suite with his dad. He'd attended 2 schools in the last 3 years. Every time his dad was fired or changed jobs, they moved. Nick bent his knees and jumped a curb on his skateboard. Living in hotels with his dad meant whenever Nick made a friend at the hotel pool, the kid was on a vacation. He figured over the last 3 or 4 years, he made 100 friends, and not one of them lived in Las Vegas. He once had a friend from Belize. He didn't even know where Belize was. Nick rode a skateboard into a big parking lot by the high school, the wheels making a steady wish-wish noise. He didn't want to go home, not with that report card. Not that his dad would say much, but he always had a sad look on his face. Bad report cards only made it sadder. Nick didn't know how long he rode his skateboard, hopping curbs, jumping over banged-up trash cans lying on their sides. The last 2 cars left the high school's parking lot, 2 teachers with bulging briefcases, grinning from ear to ear. Even teachers were happy when school let out for summer. Finally, he started toward home, the sky clear and cloudless. When he arrived at the Pendragon Hotel and Casino, the doorman, Jack, asked him, "How'd you do on your report card?" "Don't ask." "That good, huh?" "Yeah." "Then you may not want to go up. Your grandfather is here. Louisa in housekeeping called me. You can hear them yelling all the way down the hallway." "Great. Just what I need. Dad will be in an even worse mood." Nick sighed, picked up his board, walked through the lobby, and rode up in the elevator, the one with the light that sometimes flickered like a horror movie. He stepped off when it arrived at his floor. Out of the corner of his eye, he thought he saw something move. He whirled around in time to see a weird shadow on the wall. He took a few steps toward that end of the hall, and the shadow slid under a room door. Nick didn't see a single thing that could have created the shadow. What the? Shadows didn't appear from nothing. Nick hesitated, but walked closer to the door where it had disappeared. The closer he got, the more he smelled. Well, he didn't know what it was, but it was worse than his gym locker after not washing his PE uniform all year. It reminded him of the cafeteria's strange odor at lunch. Could a lunchroom stench follow you home? Or was it something weirder than that? Nick shivered. Whatever had gone under that door, shadow and stench, he didn't want to be near it. So he ran down the hall as fast as he could, looking over his shoulder every couple of strides. When he reached his door, he could hear his father and grandfather arguing. "I told you, Gus." "Absolutely not." His father's voice was loud. His dad never yelled. He gave Nick that "I'm disappointed in you, son" speech. But he never yelled, not even at Grandpa. It doesn't matter if you refuse. It's in his bloodline. Don't talk to me about this. The answer is no. She would have wanted him to go. She would have wanted to know. For sure. Once and for all. I know my daughter. She would have. She wouldn't. That's why we're even here, Gus. She was hiding from them. From her past. You're a fool. Sooner or later, he'll find out for himself. You can't fight it. Nick's heart pounded. He leaned his ear closer to the door. Find out what? Down the hall, he thought he saw something move. Regardless of the fight on the other side of the door, Nick would rather be in there with his dad and grandfather yelling at each other than out in the hall where things were getting creepier by the second. He slipped his card key in the lock and opened the door. "Nick, my boy." His grandfather turned around, a big smile on his face, acting as though nothing had happened. "I was just leaving, but I'll see you for your birthday tomorrow." A teenager. I can't believe it. 13. You make me feel older than I already am. His grandfather grabbed Nick in a bear hug. Nick looked over at his dad, who was glaring at them. After his grandfather left, Nick asked, "What were you two arguing about?" "We weren't arguing. I heard you. You're always arguing lately." His father shook his head. "Your grandfather has his own ideas about how you should be raised, and I have mine. I wish you two would get along. Sometimes there's something so important that people just can't agree. Anyway, don't worry about it, okay?" He glanced at his watch. "I need to get ready." His dad went to his bedroom to change into his tuxedo. He performed every night, twice on Saturday, as the magician at the Pendragon. He sawed an assistant in half, and he could pull a white dove out of his hat. But Nick knew he was really, really bad at it. He also told horrible jokes. His father thought they were really funny, but Nick had been in the audience. People actually groaned. His dad returned to the living room, looking dapper in his slightly thread-worn black tuxedo. He asked, if Houdini were alive today, what would he be doing today? What would he be doing? "Dad, I've heard this joke before. I've heard it like 50 times before. Humor me. What would he be doing?" "Scratching on the inside of his coffin." His father started laughing. "That one always cracks me up." Nick just shook his head. His dad walked to the door to leave. "Oh, Dad, before you go out in the hall, there was a really weird smell out there earlier." "Like what?" "I don't know, but it was down at the other end of the hall." His father opened the door and sniffed the air. "I don't smell anything. Maybe it was room service." He laughed at his own joke. "All right, buddy. There's a microwavable TV dinner in the freezer. Or you can have room service make you something, if you dare. Have a good night, okay?" Nick nodded. After his dad left, Nick poked his head out in the hall. Whatever that odor was, it was gone. He shut the door and smiled to himself. He hated when his grandfather and dad fought, but there was one good thing that came from it. His dad had forgotten to ask for his report card.